Why am I so awkward? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my PCOS story. In my last video where I talked about why I stopped posting, I mentioned that I was recently diagnosed with PCOS, and a few of my friends actually got back to me and said that they wanted me to talk more about my story and the kind of changes I made in my life for like better managing my PCOS. So that's why I'm making this video. Also, sharing your experience never hurts anyone, and who knows, this might help someone who's struggling to manage their symptoms better. So yeah, here goes this video. Just a little disclaimer before I start this video, I am not a medical professional yet. So anything that I mention in this video will be things that I've researched, experienced firsthand, or things that I found worked for me. I'm going to divide this video into 3 parts. In the first part, I'll talk about what PCOS is. In the second part, I'll talk about how to get diagnosed and how I got diagnosed with PCOS. And in the final part, I'll talk about what changes I've made into my life to manage my PCOS symptoms. Feel free to skip ahead to another part of the video if you don't want to watch one of the parts. I will link the timestamps in the description. So, what is PCOS? PCOS stands for Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome, and it's quite a common disorder that affects every 1 in 10 to 15 women, depending on the part of the world. It has a variety of symptoms that not only affects your physical health, but also your mental health. But mainly, PCOS is a disease that affects your hormones. So your body makes a lot of different hormones to regulate a lot of different functions, but there are 3 main hormones that are affected in PCOS. So the first group of hormones that are affected are androgens, otherwise also known as male hormones. They're just called male hormones because males tend to have them in more quantity, but females have these hormones too, we just normally have less of them. However, people with PCOS tend to have higher levels of androgens that can cause excessive facial and body hair. The second hormone that's affected is insulin. Insulin is a hormone produced in your pancreas in a response to a rise in blood sugar after a meal. In people with PCOS, the body doesn't react to insulin the way it should and can cause something called insulin resistance. This may lead to weight gain and trouble losing weight. The third hormone that's affected is progesterone. Progesterone is part of the menstrual cycle, and usually people with PCOS will have lower levels of progesterone that may lead to missed or delayed periods and missed ovulation, which can cause problems with fertility. There are a lot of different symptoms you could have if you have PCOS, and not everyone will have the same ones. But here is a list of some of the symptoms that people may suffer with. Due to increased androgen levels, people may experience excessive facial or body hair and hair thinning or hair fall on the scalp. This, in combination with the decreased levels of progesterone, may cause missed or delayed periods and problems in getting pregnant. Increased androgen levels also tend to cause acne or oily skin or oily hair. Insulin resistance may cause weight gain or trouble losing weight. And some of the non-physical symptoms include trouble sleeping, mood changes, and depression. Okay, now that you know a little bit about what PCOS is, I'm going to talk about how you get diagnosed with PCOS and how I got diagnosed with PCOS. So there are 3 diagnostic criteria for PCOS, and you only have to meet 2 of the 3 criteria to be diagnosed. These 3 criteria are irregular periods, increased androgen levels seen through a blood test, and visible cysts in your ovaries seen through an ultrasound. I was one of those lucky people that managed to check all 3 boxes, so it was pretty clear that I did have PCOS. But let's talk more about how exactly I got diagnosed. So I have hypothyroidism, and I require to take medication for this condition and have a blood test done every 3 months to check that the dosage of the medication is right for me. In around April last year, so in 2019, when I was still in Sheffield for uni, I went to my GP for my blood test. When I met my GP, she asked me if I had any other complaints at the time, and I mentioned that I was having a lot of trouble sleeping and I was having very frequent headaches. So she decided to get me to do some more tests than just my thyroid test to see if there were any other issues in my blood that she could identify. So once I did my blood test and went back to my GP, she told me that my androgen levels were quite increased and that it was consistent with PCOS. However, at the time, I didn't go on to get an ultrasound or see anything else and properly get diagnosed because it was coming up to my final uni exams and I was quite stressed about that, and so I just didn't really take it very seriously. Also, at this point, I had very regular periods, so I was quite convinced that I didn't have PCOS. After graduating and going back home to Malaysia, I was waiting to see a gynecologist, but because I was a tourist in Malaysia and because the healthcare in Indonesia is not that great, I decided to wait until I came to India to meet the gynecologist. So by the time I met this gynecologist in December, it had been around 8 months since my last set of blood tests, so she ordered me to get some new blood tests and to get an ultrasound as well. At this point though, I did start to have very irregular cycles, and so I was more convinced that maybe I did have PCOS. So the results of the blood test did show that I had increased androgen levels, and it also showed that I had insulin resistance. And the ultrasound results showed that I had visible cysts in my ovaries, so all of these were consistent with that of PCOS. So this was when I was finally really sure that I had PCOS, and I wanted to change what I was doing to improve my health a little bit. So now let's move on to the third part of this video where I'll talk about the changes I made in my life. When my test results came back and I went back to my doctor, the first thing she said to me after confirming that I have PCOS was, "You need to lose weight." This was not the first time a doctor had told me this. In fact, for most of my life, most doctors I've been to have told me that losing weight will help solve whatever problem I was having at the time. Unfortunately, when I was younger, I feel like this was one of the main reasons why I had such a bad relationship with food and exercise, and was often in a vicious cycle of trying to eat very little and exercising a lot to try and lose weight. However, this time it was different. I had finally gained a better understanding of my relationship towards food and exercise, and I was really determined to make a change that I knew would be better for my health in the future. I knew that my doctor was coming from a place of care and concern, but I knew that she probably could have said it in a better way. For people with PCOS who are overweight, losing a bit of weight can help alleviate some of the symptoms because excess fat tends to contribute to some of the hormonal imbalances that occurs with PCOS. So I tried to do what I thought would work, which was exercising a lot and eating in a calorie deficit. But after 2 months of trying to do this, I realized that I wasn't seeing any changes and I wasn't feeling any better, and I still hadn't gotten my periods. So at this point, which was around late February, I decided to go back to my doctor and ask for more advice.
Dun, dun, dun.
At this point, my doctor suggested that I started the oral contraceptive pill to regulate my cycles. I wasn't too keen on going on the pill, but I was really worried about the health concerns that might happen if I continue not having my period for a very long time. I knew from doing research that going on the pill to cure PCOS wouldn't really help my symptoms, but it would just suppress the symptoms by adding synthetic hormones into the mix. I also knew that the period you get on the pill is not really a real period, and it's just a withdrawal bleed that is caused by the hormones you take. So I was quite worried about how this would affect me later on. Just a little disclaimer, there's nothing wrong with using the pill if that's what you're comfortable with, but I personally don't feel comfortable using it, and I don't feel like it's really helped me that much after being on it for 4 months, and I would really like to go off it soon. Anyways, my doctor advised me that while I take the pill for 6 months, I work on some of the other aspects of PCOS like sleep and stress and exercise and food, and try to manage those aspects so that I can manage my symptoms better. Stress and sleep are two things that are very unstable for me, like very unstable. So anyways, lucky for me, I started taking the pill, and then like 2 or 3 weeks later, India announced a nationwide lockdown. So it was like perfect timing for me to start bettering myself and focusing on the things I really wanted to work on that I kept saying I didn't have time to do. at the end of the day, I'm the only person that can help myself, so it was really wrong of me to neglect my own health because I had no time. So yeah, honestly, the lockdown couldn't have come at a better time. Like, I feel like I really used this time to just focus on things that matter to me and work on my health, and like, physically but also mentally. There are quite a lot of aspects to PCOS, and when I first looked into it, it was very overwhelming, and I think trying to change everything at once is really unhealthy. So try and take baby steps. If you are someone who's struggling with this, change one thing at a time and do it slowly and in a way that works for you, so you don't get too overwhelmed by all of it. So there are 4 aspects that I have kind of worked on the last few months to improve my health and just do better for my PCOS. And those are food, stress, sleep, and exercise. So now I'll talk about each of these aspects and what I changed to help my health. So first, let's talk about food. Since I came to India, I was doing an internship at an endocrinologist clinic. So if you don't know what an endocrinologist is, it's someone who works with diseases of hormones. So people who have diabetes, people who have PCOS, people who have thyroid disorders and other endocrinological dysfunction. So luckily for me, I was working with a place that I actually learned a lot from, not just for like experience towards my future career, but also for my own health. So I was learning a lot about how to have balanced meals and what a balanced meal should look like and what kind of foods I should be eating if I have PCOS and if I have thyroid and all of that stuff. And it's kind of stuff that I've never been told before. I mean, considering that I have thyroid, that I've had thyroid for nearly 8 years now, it's crazy that I was never told that, you know, I'm not supposed to eat soy products, or I'm supposed to limit soy products and all those different things. So yeah, and luckily the girls who work at the clinic who are registered dietitians or nutritionists were really open to me asking questions, and they were always keen on answering all my questions, and I literally asked them questions all the time. So one of the main things that with food that I learned is that you need to better balance your meals, and I think actually being vegan might have worsened this part of PCOS for me because I was having a lot of carb heavy meals. So it's really important to balance out your meals with a good source of protein, but also with some healthy fats. All of these things will increase your insulin sensitivity by like because if you eat a meal that's very high in carbs, your blood sugars will rise really quickly, and then your insulin will also rise really quickly. But if you eat a meal that's more balanced and has like a carb that has a lower glycemic index, so that means that the sugars are digested a lot more slowly, then your blood sugar will rise a lot more slowly, and it will also make your insulin rise a lot more slowly. So it's all like better for insulin resistance. That's what food affects basically. So I'm still not like the healthiest person when it comes to food, but I do try to make choices that are better for me. I'm more aware of what groups of foods exist. Like I know now what a carbohydrate looks like and what protein is and what healthy fats are. And I really do try to make my meal look balanced when I'm making something. But obviously there are days where I'll just eat like pasta without any chicken or without any like protein, because
sometimes you just want pasta on its own.
But yeah, it's all about balance. Like it doesn't mean that you can't eat sugary things, or you can't eat lots of carbs, or you can't eat cakes, or you can't eat carbs at all. It's literally just all about balance. Like you have to find what works for you. You have to find what works for you that makes you happy. Like don't restrict foods and then be super unhappy about it. Like I'd rather eat what makes me happy and just do that. So yeah, I honestly feel like my relationship with food has become so much better once I stopped being vegan, because I just stopped restricting foods. Like I just eat whatever the hell I want. And yeah, it's all about balance, guys. So the next thing is exercise. Unfortunately, in the past, I was always doing the wrong kinds of exercise that I'd never enjoyed, so I would never stick to an exercise routine for longer than like a month maybe. I was under a misconception that you had to do lots of cardio to lose weight, but once I started working with a personal trainer but also doing my own research, I realized that actually that's not the only way to have a healthy body, and I started doing more HIIT, which is high intensity interval training, and also more strength-based training. And honestly, I love it. Like, I never thought that I would enjoy it this much, but it's the best part of my day. Like, it takes like 30 minutes and I feel so much more energized after. And yeah, and I've actually stuck to this exercise for like 3 months now, so that says something. Basically, it's important to find a form of exercise that you like. There's no right or wrong answer. A lot of like things I read said that cardio is not good for you, but strength training is if you have PCOS, but there's nothing like that. It's all about balance. Like, you can do a bit of cardio, you can do a bit of strength training. It's always better to mix it up, and so you don't get bored of things. But yeah, find something that works for you. Something that you can add into your daily routine. So if it's something that you can do every day when you wake up or every day in the evening, that's going to be the best thing. And make sure you enjoy it, because there's no point in doing something you don't enjoy.
You only have one life, you know.
And also, it's very important not to over exercise, because I feel like when people are trying to lose weight, they think that, oh, over exercising is going to be really good because then you'll burn a lot more calories and then you'll lose a lot more weight. But over exercising is actually quite bad for PCOS, because when you exercise, your body produces a stress hormone called cortisol, which is the same stress hormone that's produced when you're stressed, like mentally. Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, this is just something that I've read, but basically cortisol can cause more hormonal imbalances and can affect the other hormones that are that play a part in PCOS. So overexercising can be really bad, because when you exercise a lot, then you'll have a lot of cortisol in your body, and it basically will seem to your body that you're under a lot of stress. So that brings me into my next point, which is stress. I am really bad at managing stress. I take on a lot of stress from other people around me. I take on a lot of stress from myself. I tend to stress about things that are beyond my control. And I also find it really hard to de-stress, but I'm working on it. I'm still learning what works and what doesn't for me, and how I can manage my stress better. But it's so important to do things that keep you happy, because stress is not just bad for PCOS, but it's also bad for your health in general, like in terms of other diseases. So I'm still like trialing ways to like de-stress and not be stressed, because I feel like I'm always stressed. So recently, for the last like few days, what I've been trying is journaling. So instead of waking up in the morning and first thing going on my phone, which is what I would do before, I go and journal for a little bit, and I will write like a little to-do list of things that I want to get done in the day, and also write something called a brain dump. And that's basically where I just like write whatever is bothering me, whatever fears I have, whatever anxieties I'm having, just to get it out of my head and just on a piece of paper and like whatever. And yeah, I find that the to-do lists help me, because I actually feel more stressed when I have nothing to do or when I have too much time, because it feels like weird to me. I don't know, I'm sure that's not a very good thing, but yeah. And obviously being in lockdown, I have a lot of time. So yeah, I just feel like it's better for me to make a list of things that I want to get done, so that I can, even if it's just like small things like making my bed or doing the laundry or something bigger like filming a video, it's just a way of like looking forward to my day and having things planned for the day. Also, in the beginning of lockdown, when I was quite stressed about some things going on in my personal life, I found that meditation was really helping me. But it depends, like, because I'm quite an overthinker, I struggle to like be focused in meditation. Like, I'll always think about something else and then I'll forget, and I won't listen to what the meditation is saying if it's a guided meditation. So yeah, sometimes it works for me if I'm not in that kind of state, and when it does work, it does make me feel a lot more calm and a lot more like in the present, which is something I struggle with because I'm always thinking about the future. But yeah, sometimes it doesn't help because I'm just not able to focus on it. Okay, so the last aspect is sleep. This one's actually affected by stress. Well, I mean, it is for me especially, because on the days I'm more stressed, I will struggle to sleep. But I've just found that generally over the last like 3 to 4 years, I've been a very terrible sleeper. I don't remember being a bad sleeper when I was in like school, but maybe in my last year of school. But once I went to uni, and then like now as well after uni, I've just been a very, very bad sleeper. I tend to find it really hard to fall asleep, or I sleep really late, And then if I do fall asleep, I always wake up every few hours and I'm quite like restless. Partly I will blame it on myself because I have a very bad like sleeping habit, which is like taking all my devices into bed with me and like watching Netflix or scrolling on Instagram or scrolling on Twitter, which obviously is gonna keep me up for hours. So yeah, I've been trying to not do that, but I actually found that being in lockdown, my sleep has gotten worse because I don't have anything to wake up for. Like I don't have to wake up to go to work, so I'm just like, oh whatever, I can just sleep whenever and wake up whenever. But honestly, I don't think that's been helping a lot in terms of like PCOS, because it's really important to have not only enough sleep but like restful sleep, which is my problem. Like I don't get restful sleep. Even if I sleep, I wake up and I don't feel like I've slept, if that makes sense. So yeah, I've been trying to work on some of the things to make my sleep better, and one of those things is not bringing my devices into bed. I don't do it every day, but I have been trying to be a bit more strict in the last 1 week especially, where I will leave my devices on the other side of my room. Like usually I'll leave it on this table and I'll get into bed and I'll put on some like soothing lo-fi music, and I'll either try and read for a bit before I go to sleep or do some deep breaths like while lying down. And those are things that I found works, but I still take like an hour to fall asleep, so there you go. But yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to do better. Like I'm still working on it. One thing that actually I think really works for me is counting down backwards from 100. I think it just kind of distracts my mind a little bit from all the other thoughts that come into my head when I'm trying to fall asleep and make me not fall asleep. So yeah, that's really, that's a good one. But sometimes while counting down, I'll like get distracted by my thoughts, and then I'll start thinking about those thoughts, and then I'll forget where I was in the number, and then I have to restart again. It's a whole thing. But yeah, I'm working on it, and hopefully I'll get there eventually. I'd like to say that I'd be able to sleep for 8 hours straight and not wake up, but honestly, I barely sleep for like 3 to 4 hours, and then I'll wake up for like 1 or 2 hours and then sleep again for 3 to 4 hours. So yeah, hopefully in a few months that won't be the case. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something, and maybe if you didn't, then thanks for watching anyways. I will link a few things in the description of like where I got my information and pages that I follow. So there's a few Instagram pages, and there's a podcast on Spotify, and there's also a link to a couple of websites that I've been reading up on. Feel free to message me or comment down below if you have any questions about any of this. And yeah, I'm more than happy to have a discussion about anything. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.